A big thank you to Jero for sponsoring today's video on Patreon. Heliod the Radiant Dawn versus Zurgo, Child of Alara, and Tivash. Hoping that Child of Alara isn't board wipe tribal. Sometimes it's just a generic 5-colour deck. Yeah, we've got our mana here, but we don't have anything else to do, annoyingly. Are we just going to hope that we actually draw into stuff? I think we'll just keep that and keep our fingers crossed. We draw on our first turn, thankfully, and there is a Kami of the Crescent Moon, so that's quite good. That will dissuade us from maybe going for Heliod on turn 2. I want to play it and flip it in the same turn anyway, so it's probably Kami next turn. Although we've got Fierce Guardianship in hand, so maybe we could go for the Heliod on turn 2, ready for flipping it straight away. Hopefully the Fierce Guardianship would protect it. Alright, more protection in Bastion Protector now. Yeah, I think I'll go for a dual land with the Marsh Flats. I think we will try to go fast with our commander here, because we can play Kami of the Crescent Moon at flash speed at the end of one of our opponent's turns. Wouldn't do this if I didn't have the Fierce Guardianship available. Obviously no enchantment to pull back with the Heliod. Really using Heliod the Warped Eclipse in this deck. A Sign in Blood for the black player. Going to draw up to 8 cards and we'll have to discard to hand size. And that land does suggest that it might be board wipe tribal from the 5-colour player on Do Inversion. Coming in as a tap land, thankfully. It was a Grey Merchant of Asphodel that was discarded over here, by the way, and another black spell, Dreadhorde Invasion, being cast. And there we see a Cityscape Leveler, which we should be able to cast if we need to with the Wheel and Deal, but I don't think we want to go too hard on our opponents. I don't want anyone scooping. So we'll transform the Heliod with 2 Phyrexian Life and 3 mana. And now we've got a 4/6. So I think I'm just going to start concentrating on the Child of Alara, because I have no doubt that it's going to be wiping the board every chance it gets anyway. Obviously no need to cast anything else on this turn. All of our spells are going to cost at least 1 less as long as our opponents are getting a draw phase. A Vampiric Tutor during our opponent's main phase, so I assume that that's what they've drawn this turn. They're either going to go for a land or some spot removal, I would assume. Yeah, and Tivash not doing well on the land front, unfortunately, so by turn 3 not getting into a 3rd land, which is pretty unlucky when you've cast a Sign in Blood. Now seeing a battle, one of the first I've seen on the channel, Invasion of Ixalan. This one enters, look at the top 5 cards, get a permanent from amongst them into hand and the rest on the bottom. And then throwing it over on this side, so I have to defend this thing, or else they'll get a 4/3 Trampler. So maybe it's a battle tribal deck, they get a tri-land there, and play that out straight away. A Magsynth Wellspring for our opponents, so we'll allow that down, not going to counter that of course. So let's go for this Kami of the Crescent Moon. We obviously don't give our opponents a bunch of cards to draw before we get our first draw with it, which is why we want to save it until we cast it here. See if we get a bolt from the Mana Crypt. We win the flip, so managing to dodge the bolt. And that's a Gyreet Sanitarium, so we've got a land for the turn. That's obviously something that we want to keep up on. And Reflecting Pool is good as well, so let's throw that down. And I think, not going to worry about any spells just yet, swinging straight down the middle at Child of Alara. We could ruin on the draw step here. We could ruin what this person tutored for if we think they've gone for a board wipe. I'd leave the board wipes to Child of Alara personally, but yeah, I think we'll see what our opponent drew into. I think in this scenario they probably should have gone for a land with the Vampiric Tutor. Anyway, our opponent draws an additional card to the Kami, so we'll see what they get here. That is a Cabal Coffers, which is a strange land to tutor for if that's what they went for. Okay, they've got a Soul Ring, so 3 mana still available. So managing to filter the Soul Ring mana through the Cabal Coffers onto an Animate Dead. And that is a Grey Merchant of Asphodel. Not really all that worried about that, to be honest. So yeah, that can just be a blocker for them. So we all get drained for 3, and our opponent goes up to 45 life here. A Cultivate for Child of Alara, so still fixing the colours over there. I was worried that we'd see an attempt at a board wipe there. Although we should be able to do something about it at this point and still progress our board. Obviously we can do something about it with a free counter spell, but I want to be progressing the board as well. A Wayfarer's Bauble after that. Zurgo drawing an additional card to the Kami. Another plus counter put on the zombie army over here, so that's now a 2-2. Alright, a Crucible of Worlds here, so that's a good target for the Cityscape Leveler, although I think they're just using it to fix the colours at this point, really. Maybe there's some kind of zombie tribal thing going on with a Field of the Dead, but not something we have to worry about just yet. Again, we have to play around the fact that our opponents could scoop on us. Alright, so with it being still quite early in the game and our opponents haven't done too much, I'll assume that they still have a decent number of their opening cards in hand, so maybe targeting all of them with a Wheel and Deal is not only going to kind of ramp us ahead a lot, but could really screw up our opponents here. Wheel and Deal only going to cost 3 mana because we are doing it on an opponent's turn when they have drawn a card. Oh, of course, it costs 2 less actually, thanks to the Kami. There is a Law Broker, so that means that the Cityscape Leveler is going to be free here. We will blow up... Yeah, let's just blow up the Grey Merchant of Asphodel. We'll be able to attack him with that next turn and blow something up again. I'll try and have a flick through. In fact, I'll have the graveyards open now and you can have a look at them if you would like. I appreciate it's difficult with these battles, but I'll reveal them here. This is looking like a battle tribal deck, so hopefully it sticks around because that's a fun and unique build that our opponent's gone for. Play the Bastion Protector as well, so that protects us against any board wipes, hopefully. And we'll go for the Law Broker here as well to get Summoning Sickness away from it. So now we've just got Counter Magic back up. And we're really threatening commander damage over here for this player. That is, yeah, a 6-8 at the moment, thanks to the buff on the Bastion Protector. And Alara, and that is your temple is under attack, so we can give indestructible to stuff, but that's probably just card draw for us. Throw down the Gyreet Sanitarium for more card draw. And we'll start swinging in here. We'll go into the right with the Cityscape Leveler. Straight down the middle with Heliod so that we can whack them for commander whenever we feel as though they're getting a bit too far ahead of us. And then the Bastion Protector and the Kami can go into the left. So Cityscape Leveler triggers. Let's blow up the... we'll just go for the Dreadhorde Invasion. I should go for the Crucible, but we're getting quite a ways ahead of our opponents here. So blocking the Cityscape Leveler, that does have Trample, so 6 damage will go through, and they will lose a zombie token. They're probably hoping for a board wipe at this point anyway. And then there's no need to do anything on our main phase, of course, because we've got Flash on everything. Now I would hope that we've got the mono black player into some swamps here, because they didn't have a single one, of course, which we already knew. And like we said before, tutoring for completely the wrong card there. Assuming they've got Urborg in the deck, they should have gone for Urborg over Cabal Coffers, ready to draw into this later on. They've got a Power Stone token as well, thanks to the Cityscape Leveler, so we'll be able to play artifact-based rocks. It can go into the Cabal Coffers as well, which is noteworthy. So could generate some more mana that way. And there we see a land into a Damnation, so let's see here. Do we go for the card draw first? Yeah, let's go for a 1 mana. Your temple is under attack. And we'll have the Zurgo player draw some cards with us. So that draws us into a Psychosis Crawler. The Ancestral Cornucopia is good. I think Psychosis Crawler should cost 1. Yes, it does. So let's go for the Gyreet Sanitarium looting us. This is on each player, so 3 opponents each draw a card, and that means that our spells cost 3 less. Teferi's Ageless Insight is pretty insane. And we're obviously trying to set up the rewind here so that we can untap all of our lands. So let's just discard, against my better judgment, the Otawara, now that we've got the Ancestral Cornucopia. That's funny, our opponent's discarded a swamp, so maybe has a surplus of lands in hand now. So our spells currently cost 7 less to cast, which means we can put a couple into Ancestral Cornucopia, and it will tap for 3. So yeah, let's do that here. So X is 3 on the Ancestral Cornucopia, costing us 9. We've obviously only put 2 mana into it because our spells cost 7 less. But it would be good to go Rewind and Teferi's Ageless Insight as well this turn. So play Psychosis Crawler for free. Then we can unwind. That will only be 2 blue mana. It only reduces generic costs on the Heliod. But we can untap 4 lands. got a few means of untapping lands in the deck because it's colour mana that we struggle on. And yeah, that has that player scoop. So we'll just get down the Teferi's Ageless Insight here as well, so that we can begin to draw 2 cards on the Lawbroker and discard 1. Obviously on the Gaia Reach Sanitarium that will work as well. So we're down to 1 card in hand. Fortunately for us, it is another counter spell. We'll keep our Heliod in play anyway because it is indestructible. Unless our opponents can go for some kind of exile. Need to be careful not killing off the Psychosis Crawler as well. It is down to a 1-1, so we'll have to draw cards before we use the Fierce Guardianship if we can. And now we see an Austere Command trying to blow up all the big creatures and artifacts. So let's go for the Lawbroker. I imagine we're going to see lots of board wipes, as I've already said, from the Child of Alara, which is why I've been focusing over there. We draw 2 cards to the Lawbroker. So the Psychosis Crawler has our opponents lose 2 life. There's a Scion of Draco. I don't think we particularly need. This is in here for Vigilance and Hexproof on our commander. Hexproof could be useful, but we've got the Greater Auramancy there, so get rid of the Scion. And then we will Gaia Reach Sanitarium as well. And draw some more cards, because we'll still be able to afford the Fierce Guardianship, of course. There's a Vision Skeins, so each player drawing 2 off the back of that. So do we forego Shroud on the Heliod? Don't think we can. Let's just get rid of the Thought Vessel here, even though it is free to cast. Then might as well go for the Skeins here. So each player drawing 2 cards, which means we draw 4, and we do get into some colourless stuff there. That's excellent. So the deck doing exactly what we want it to do. Font of Mythos is free, so that is more group hug draw shenanigans. Play the Azorius Signet. And I'm not sure if we can kick the Skyclave Relic here. Yes, we can. So we get the Skyclave Relic in with a bunch of copies. They do come in tapped, but we're really dunking on our opponent here, unfortunately. So let's go Fierce Guardianship for free on the Austere Command. And yeah, it's just been really lucky. All this off the back of an early Mana Crypt. It's just been really, really lucky for us. But if the Mardu player gets into a means of exiling all the creatures, then might still be able to do something to us. So drawing additional cards again at the beginning of the turn will help them get into answers, but it will also help reduce the cost of our cards, which is obviously what our aim is here. But if our opponents keep getting into interaction and can actually do something against us, it will put us on the back foot ultimately. A Hall of Heliod's Generosity from our opponent, followed by an Arcane Signet, so turn 5 and our opponents unfortunately still setting up the mana over there. Followed by Talisman of Conviction, continuing to set up the mana. Alright, and there's Swords to Plowshares on the Heliod, which is exactly why I'm being reactionary with the Greater Auramancy. So that is just 1 mana. We could afford the 2 mana anyway, thanks to the Azorius Signet, but yeah, like I keep saying, we've just been really lucky. This game had absolutely everything we needed. So the Swords to Plowshares will fizzle now that our commander has Shroud as well as Indestructible. It will be very difficult to remove. There is a Vanquish the Horde, so going to blow up a bunch of stuff here. Yeah, blows up everything except our commander, so that will lose Indestructible. Loses a loot effect for us as well in the Lawbroker, which I wouldn't have minded keeping. Luckily we've got the Font of Mythos now, so should refill our hand regardless. Expedition map then. So yeah, the Mardu player was definitely capable of dealing with us. I imagine all the players were capable of dealing with us. It's just we were really lucky going for the fast Mana Crypt. I was deciding whether or not to go fast with that at the beginning of the game, as you're all aware, and yeah, it's paid off quite nicely for us. Zurgo has too many cards in hand, so discards down to hand size. And we've got a nice surplus of coloured mana now. There's a Coveted Jewel to add to that. Give our opponents even more of a headache with the Hullbreaker Horror. So I'll continue to limp my way up to dealing with the board wipe tribal deck. Only 4 damage on that thing now, so I'll take him up to 18 and hopefully it'll be 22 next turn. So our opponent will draw 3 cards at the beginning of the turn, 2 from the Font of Mythos and then another one from the draw step, meaning our stuff costs 3 less. Luckily we've got sort of counter magic in the form of Hullbreaker Horror here. And there we see Invasion of Ravnica. When it enters, exile a non-land permanent an opponent controls that isn't exactly 2 colours. Well, we don't want any of our stuff exiled here, so let's go for the Hullbreaker Horror. Yeah, and our opponents decide to scoop as soon as they see that. I mean, obviously this is going to make things really, really difficult for our opponents, because every single spell we have has flash, and we can just bounce all the spells back to hand. So, would have drawn 6 cards from the coveted Jewel there, which would have taken us into even more card drawing. Windfall and Void Winnower would have been free off the back of a Windfall. Being able to control the board even further with a Seal of Removal. This will come back if we have to recast our commander from the command zone. But yeah, it turns out that if you can get out Heliod, the Warped Eclipse, fast enough, then it's a pretty powerful commander. For the sake of transparency here, I do tend to ask for casual games on Magic Online now, because everyone tends to go for more EDH builds. I think this game, from my perspective, would have been more high power, but it's difficult to really judge that because it was all off the back of that Mana Crypt. If we didn't have the Mana Crypt and the Fierce Guardianship in our opening hand, then it would have been a much slower and probably much more interactive game, but that's just the way it happened this time. If you want to see more from this deck, then I'll be sure to play it again, and maybe we can get a more fair showing of it. I'll keep a close eye on the likes and the views of this video. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.